So, if you notice at the top of the screen, people are and we're going to start playing it again. Go back a few seconds. Okay, there you go. You're going to see at the top of the screen where the movement begins. And it sort of looks like it starts not just in the center, but towards the intersection of Rosalind and Central, sort of moving this way. Play. See people moving, people running, and it was just a chain reaction. Okay, stop. All right. At the same time this is going on, we received and saw video from a private citizen where on Pine Street, behind these buildings where the people began to run away from, there were some fireworks going off. Did that have anything to do with the reason why someone began to run when those fireworks were going off versus the fireworks at Lake Eola? We don't know. Continue to play. Okay, stop. So then, are we going to play the video around Washington or not? We can?
Pull it up.
Okay, while we talk then. And by the way, Deputy Chief Smith was the event commander last night at Lake Eola, overseeing the entire operation. Today, what our crime center is doing is going over all the video that was collected in the area from our system. And so far, this is the main video that we have found. Well, this is the area of the band shell, and the crowd is coming from Central and Rosalind, moving this way after, again, whatever created the panic that caused people to run. Just people seeing other people running pushed them to make that decision to run with them. See, people are beginning to come to this area from, again, the southern end of Rosalind. Okay. So understandably so, people see others running. You're hearing all the news coverage about what happened elsewhere during some of the celebrations, and people were just being overly reactive to whatever was going on around them, and rightly so. I mean, you don't want to wait until something strikes you. You want to make sure you do something to protect yourself and your families. What we're asking for is for anyone who was in the area of Central, specifically Central, near Rosalind. I'm sure there's some video that they took. I'm sure that they saw something. There's probably a handful of people who were the first to start running, the first to basically move away from the area for whatever reason. We would love to talk to them, or we would love to get additional information from them so that we can pinpoint what led to the people moving away from the area, running from the area, when whatever it was sparked them to do so, right? That's one. The other thing is, as you heard last night, everyone was reunited who was separated from their families. Great job by Deputy Chief Smith and his team who were out there making sure that that was taken care of. Kudos to the fire department for taking care of those who were hurt in the process. 12 is the number that we're still hearing. And regarding the belongings, there is a link that has been provided that we'll provide again for individuals who may have missed or lost some property. We're going to try to, again, help them with that as much as possible during the process. So these videos will be shared with you. The video that was captured by the private citizen showing the fireworks going on at Pine Street around the same time that the fireworks were going on at Lake Eola during the same time that people started running will be provided to you also. And regarding the two individuals who were seen sort of jogging away from the area, we're curious, what was going on there? Were they related? Or was it something that by coincidence happened to be two people running away from the, or jogging away from the area right before people started running. We want to know, what was going on there too. So the key here, I think, is going to be for our citizens who may have seen something, who may have captured something on video, to please share it with us. We will provide, again, a link. Our system through Axon allows for citizens to upload their video to the Orlando Police Department, so we will make that link available. With that said, do you have any other questions or questions that you may want answered?
Any charges?
So it all depends if it was an intentional act, that someone purposely came out to Lake Eola last night to create this panic. Obviously, we're going to look for anything that we can find on the books to potentially charge that person with. Obviously, if it was intentional, it was very irresponsible and something that resulted in people getting injured. So definitely, we'll be looking at all charges if we can pinpoint something specific.
So you might have said this, but the flash that you see behind the crowd on Center, do you guys believe that was someone else setting fireworks off?
Well, we don't, and that's the question. So you have the fireworks going on Pine Street, and it's between two buildings. Was it a reflection of that? We're looking into that. Was it an actual flash of something else that popped there? The citizens who were in that general area have the answer, and that's why we're seeking their help in clarifying that for us.
There's no evidence of fireworks left
No.
over there.
So I asked that specific question a few minutes ago, and of course, the clean teams, whenever we have a large event, they're really quick about cleaning up the area, and that area has been basically swept. So I think the key is for whomever was there, there's one person who always starts, obviously, a process, and in this case, the running. There was probably a group in a specific spot that started this. They know who they are. We just want to hear from them. And you know what? If it was just their perception of what they heard and that caused them to run, we just want to hear that so that we can obviously clarify any other questions that anyone may have.
What are the rules as far as personal fireworks? I assume that they're not allowed to be set off at this area. Is there a certain perimeter where they are not allowed, and then I guess a certain spot where people can start doing them? Obviously, there's some residential areas around the park, so kind of where is that allowed and not allowed as far as personal fireworks?
So there are a lot of rules that regulate the use of specific fireworks, and more often than not every year we address this, in many communities where unfortunately there's just not enough resources to police that. Even in my neighborhood, great neighborhood, love my neighborhood, and there were fireworks going off that were probably, competing with the fireworks that were being used at Lake Eola is common. So to say, that this particular set of fireworks was improper, illegal, and what have you, probably. But is it common around the general area of any neighborhood, of any community? Absolutely.
As far as Lake Eola, but that's like that area there, they're not allowed to do it.
Well, it didn't happen within Lake Eola itself. It happened on Pine Street, which is one block over. But again, no one was harmed during that particular situation. But we're wondering, was it that maybe caused someone to panic? We don't know. Well, we would like those answers.
Buenos días, Félix Pineda de Telemundo. Quisiéramos saber cómo la policía pudo aclarar tan rápido lo que está sucediendo y por qué siguieron los fuegos artificiales en medio del caos.
So, mucha información la cual quiero cubrir contigo y si me permite, tan pronto terminemos con esto, te voy a hablar específicamente sobre eso. ¿Ok? Por favor.
You did ask a good question maybe
Yep.
For the general public. Felix asked, how do we know, how were we able to identify that there were no shots fired in
Yep.
the area so quickly?
Yep. So what I'm going to do for that particular answer, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Eric Smith, who was there, so that he can tell you what was the first thought or feeling when people started running and how the department and the staff responded to that. Eric?
For all major events, just like this one, we deploy a lot of resources. We give a lot of training to prepare for it. We deploy a lot of resources. Part of the resources we deploy are a SWAT team, and basically they're there for active shooters, and they also have an element of counter sniper observer element, which is in a certain position where they can see what's going on in the lake. We also have officers spread around. The first thing I did was go to their channel, You guys see anything? You see anything? No, we have nothing. We see people running. We saw people start running, and that was one of the things that set it off. So we spread our officers around. We get good surveillance on certain positions to see everything. Of course, we can't see everything. That's why after the event happened, we actually got on the ground. Officers went around in our active shooter teams to look for any kind of threats, look for people who could have been victims or anything like that. So we spread out. That's why it took us a while to get things out to you on social media and get some other answers out. We want to make sure everything's safe and the whole area is secure before we say there's definitely, most likely not a shooting that occurred.
Eric has a question.
Deputy Chief and Chief, love to hear from both of you on this. So this is probably the biggest event that the city hosts. You know, we've been at it for a couple of years. It's back now. Lots of people were excited. As you know, it didn't end well. Lots of people are going to have this now etched in their memories. How do you, first of all, how do you feel about that this was ruined by something? Secondly, how do you do this again now? People are so jittery that they're moved by a sound. How do we bring 150,000 people together again?
I hate that this happened. It's terrible for the community and, of course, the city, of course. But I think what we still have to do is move forward like we are. People go out and do things. And from our point of view, we have to have that presence there. We have to have the officers on the ground, make people feel comfortable. They need to see our officers out and about. Like most news outlets, they basically said that there were officers around all around the lake. You saw the officers before this happened. And we've got to look at our deployment and, as we prepare for next year and make sure that's good. People want to see our officers. There's officers, of course, you can't see who are doing certain roles, but people want to see our officers and be able to talk to our officers, see our officers all around the lake. And we just got to make sure we're present to make people feel comfortable.
So, and what I would add to that is that, think about this. The night before, huge event took place in Altamont, right? Huge. But we did not have the one component that we were dealing with on July 4th, which was the aftermath of a tragedy in Illinois that put everyone on edge. I would venture to say that the people who attended our event were in a totally different mindset compared to those who attended other events the night before. So with that said, it is the reality that unfortunately when something like this happens, it does place some fear on our citizens whenever they experience or hear about an experience like this elsewhere in the country. But I think we need to remind ourselves for next year is that we cannot allow for fear to dictate how it is that we live our lives. And the city of Orlando is an awesome city that hosts many events. This is ground zero for everything that's happening in Central Florida for the most part, right? So we, just like Deputy Chief Smith said, for next year, you will see the police presence. You will see the great work that the city of Orlando does to host these type of events. And we do need to make sure that we continue to preach to our citizens that we're empowering them to help us police our city, right? To make sure that they are our eyes and ears so that whenever something suspicious is happening, to report it to us so that we can act on it. So I guarantee you that obviously this was a unfortunate situation, just like Eric mentioned, but for next year, it'll be something that obviously we'll think about what happened this year, but for next year, I think we'll be back to normal.
What should people do in the event of a panic like this? What should people do? Should they run? Should they hide? Should they stay in place?
See, that's a decision that everyone has to make on their own, right? It's interesting because yesterday I did some interviews and some people were asking, so what should you do if something does happen? You know, we live in a world today where we all have to have a plan. If we're going to be there with family, if we're going to be there with friends, if we're going to be there with or attend a large event with a large group, we should talk about, hey, if we did get separated, where should we meet? If we get separated, who will you call? You know, those sort of things are very important. It's a new normal that, you know, we probably should be exercising more. When it comes to the decision to whether run, fight, or hide, that's really up to the individual, you know, and to tell someone this is exactly what you should do, it's really not feasible. So for anyone attending any event, obviously probably our mindset is much different than the average citizen, you know, on what we would choose to do, but that's a decision that everyone has to at least process through their head.
Do you think there was enough law enforcement?
I'm sorry?
Do you think there was enough law enforcement security
If it was up to us, we probably have 10,000 officers out there patrolling any event that we do, but it's not realistic to do that. What we do prepare for is exactly what Deputy Chief Smith mentioned. We have multiple layers. We have an extra duty detail, officers that are being paid to be there to work the event. We have special teams that are deployed, are called to basically work the event. And then we have on-duty officers that are usually part of the detail. We call them in when they're needed. But then there's another layer that a lot of people don't think about, which is the private sector, private security at the buildings, at different sites that also provide eyes and ears for the police department for events like this. So do we believe we had adequate staffing? Absolutely. And just like we have seen in the past, whenever something happens of a significant magnitude, the masses are there. All their law enforcement agencies from Central Florida, they can quickly converge and come to assist if needed. There was a question over here. There was a,
What do you suspect, Chief? What do you suspect that you're going to make? You know, there's a lot of videos, a lot of theories. What do you think happened?
what I personally believe is that something definitely triggers someone to flee away from a specific spot, which then causes a chain reaction that caused the masses to do the same because of what had happened earlier in the day that still stuck to their minds. I don't think if the same situation had happened on Friday where a group of people started running, I don't think you would have had, or you would have seen the same reaction. That's just my personal feeling. But please, 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 if there's a citizen who was in that general area who saw or specifically, started the process, to please call us. They're not in trouble. We're just asking them to please clarify what it was that caused them to run from the area. And that's all we're looking for.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. ¿Vamos a hacer el español? Sí. Okay. ¿Lo vamos a hacer ahí o lo vamos a hacer en otro sitio? Oh, perdona, no sabía. Perdona, no sabía que estabas en vivo. Yep, no, go ahead. Sí, cómo no. Cómo no. Okay. Bueno, como te puedes imaginar, había muchas cosas que estaban pasando a la misma vez. El proceso de los fuegos artificiales es un proceso que es sincronizado. Muchas veces las computadoras son las cuales dictan cómo es que los fuegos artificiales se disparan. Si te puedo asegurar que si de inmediato hubieran identificado una situación donde una persona estaba disparando o haciendo algo grave, pues obviamente esa información se hubiera sido, esa notificación se hubiera dado a todo el personal que estaba como parte de los fuegos artificiales, incluyendo las personas que lo estaban disparando, los fuegos artificiales. Pero teníamos una gran presencia en la zona de Lake Eola y de inmediato, como dijo el Deputy Chief, de inmediato se le pidió a los oficiales que nos dejaran saber si veían o vieron algo sospechoso o si había una situación la cual estaban viendo, y ese no fue el caso. Nunca llegó al punto donde pudimos identificar que algo serio estaba ocurriendo. Sabíamos que obviamente la gente estaba corriendo, algo lo cual nos molestó mucho y queríamos saber el por qué, pero no identificamos una situación donde una persona estaba cometiendo un crimen, lo cual resultó en las personas correr de la zona.
¿La cantidad de lesionados ahí se podría enfrentar cargo a alguna persona relacionada con esta situación?
Si esta investigación llega al punto donde se puede identificar una persona o personas las cuales hicieron algo con la intención de crear lo que se desarrolló, obviamente vamos a pedirle al Estado que cualquier cargo que esté disponible para poder formularle a esa persona se haga posible. Pero hasta ahora no tenemos ninguna información la cual indique que una persona hizo algo con intención, ¿verdad? Pudo ser algo tan sencillo como que alguien escuchó un ruido, se paniqueó, y de repente comenzó a correr. Puede ser que alguien quizás utilizó un fuego artificial para crear lo que sucedió. Dependiendo de lo que investiguemos y encontremos durante la investigación, entonces eso va a determinar cuáles acciones vamos a tomar.
Luego que ocurriera más temprano lo de la situación en Illinois, ¿eso de alguna forma a ustedes los impulsó a tomar un plan adicional a través de, por ejemplo, el Crime Center?
Sí, no, el plan ya estaba, pero obviamente los oficiales estaban en más alerta, estaban más pendientes de lo que estaba sucediendo. Nuestros comunicados para los medios fue ese, que necesitamos la asistencia de nuestros ciudadanos para poder que nos ayudaran si veían algo sospechoso, que nos dejaran saber. Esos pasos se tomaron. Pero, como dije antes, si no hubiera sucedido lo que sucedió durante el día antes de nuestro evento, no creo que hubiéramos visto la situación que vimos anoche. Todo el mundo estaba muy pendiente de lo que estaba sucediendo y tenía miedo de que algo así ocurriera en nuestra comunidad, lo cual es muy razonable.
Por último, jefe, sabemos que aquí en Orlando lamentablemente en 2016 fuimos el centro de un ataque masivo, ¿no? Un tirador activo. De alguna forma la ciudad, las autoridades policiales en los últimos años se han preparado mucho más para atacar situaciones de este tipo de eventos.
Siempre que ocurre un incidente a nivel nacional y internacional, siempre buscamos la manera para aprender de las lecciones que se desarrollaron, que dice, okay, esto es lo que pueden hacer en el futuro para evitar los errores si algún error se cometió. Siempre estamos buscando la manera para poder hacer lo posible para desarrollar mejores tácticas y mejores maneras para poder responder para ese tipo de situación. No, la ciudad de Orlando está muy acostumbrada a tener 100,000, 200,000 personas en nuestra zona durante diferentes eventos y por esa razón tenemos ya la experiencia de asignar los oficiales y el local muchas veces el mismo cuando se desarrollan eventos, o ya sabemos específicamente dónde los oficiales tienen que estar. También estamos muy pendientes de lo que esté sucediendo o la información que estemos recibiendo. Dependiendo de esa información, pues obviamente modificamos nuestros planes, pero normalmente siempre tenemos más oficiales de lo que en verdad se necesitan.
¿Los tipos de heridas que sufrieron las
lesiones leves, no fueron de gravedad, y fueron 12 personas las cuales fueron atendidas para las lesiones que recibieron.
¿Entre ellos algunos niños que se perdieron por momentos?
Sí, hubieron niños que se separaron de sus familias y nosotros tuvimos una zona donde pudieron entonces los oficiales traer las familias y conectar las familias con los niños.
Las personas que perdieron sus pertenencias, que todavía las están buscando, ¿a dónde pueden ir? ¿Cómo pueden hacer?
La ciudad tiene un link, el cual se le va a ofrecer a todos los medios para que continúen dándoles información a nuestros ciudadanos. ¿Ok? All right, gracias. Okay. Yeah.